I'm Damien Valentine, and check out Heir to the Empire.
I'm Tracy Harwood, and I'm academic.
Ricky, grow.
Hi, my name is Phil. Hi, I'm Phil Rice.
Perfect. That's all we need.
Hello, and welcome to And Now for Something Completely Machinima podcast. I'm Tracy Harwood. I'm one of the hosts, and I'm here today with Ricky Grove, Phil Rice, and Damien Valentine.
Hello.
Still running away from the paparazzi, I'm sure.
Yes, I've hidden my location with this green screen.
Thank you.
Perfect.
That's really, really appreciated.
Yeah.
Now, this month, we've got some really, really great picks for you. Some are made in Unreal. We've also got a Half-Life 2 pick and a No Man's Sky pick. And we're really excited to talk to you about all of these. But also, we've also got some other projects that we'll share with you on our blog and some news updates on the technologies that we've been covering also on the blog, some general techs, and also a few updates on the Creative Eye Genies that we've been following. Ricky, I think you've got an update that you wanted to share before we get started.
Yeah, I love ultra wide screens, mostly because for the work that I do, the graphic arts work, because the wide screen allows me to put pages together, 3 large pages. That way I can move back and forth easily. But it's also pretty cool for gaming. But it died, and so I did some research, and I came up with a really good $400 ultra widescreen monitor by Gigabyte, which is unusual because Gigabyte isn't known for making monitors. You know, LG and other companies are the ones who do it. So I ordered it, got it, and set it up, and love it. It's great. Although a little difference here is that it's wide, it's curved, and I'm still trying to get used to some of the curved, the change in the way images stretch a little bit with the curve. You keep thinking there's something wrong with the settings, but no, it's not. I've been playing Elden Ring, of course, and the problem with Elden Ring is that the only way to get an ultra wide screen resolution for 4410 width wide is with a mod.
Oh.
Which is strange because the game is such an amazing game, and it's so well coded. You think that built that in for ultra wide monitors because gamers are crazy about technology and they love their ultra wide monitor, and it is beautiful when you have it on a big wide screen. And also certain movies you can watch on an ultra wide screen, which is great. But the mod you can use to fix the Elden Ring is available for free. We'll put a little link to it if you're interested in that. However, you have to do a couple things which are a little frumpy. One is you have to disable the anti-cheat mechanism in the game, and you have to be offline. And I worry that I'm going to do that and then forget and go back online, and suddenly they go, "You're using a mod. You're banned." Can't do that. But in any event, I'm really happy with it. We'll put the link to it. I can't remember they have such odd names, numbers and names and letters and everything. But it's by Gigabyte. It's an ultra wide monitor. It's really new. Good reviews, about $400, and it's excellent. Really like it.
Brilliant.
That's a really good price for an ultra wide, Ricky. I've looked at those for myself and for customers too, and 400 is a great price. My goodness.
Yep. Yeah. And it comes. I'm amazed with what it comes with: HDMI cables and 3 different power adapters, depending on whether in Europe or Asia or the United States. So you can plug it right into whatever country you're in just fine.
Nice.
And all of it's free because the HDMI cable itself is $20, $25. Mm-hmm. So that's cool.
Awesome.
Hey, Phil, I wanted to ask you, excuse me, Tracy, I wanted to ask you, you were talking about wanting to have a brief discussion of the actor strike. Did you still want to do that?
I really just had, I kind of thought about how to keep it as brief as possible, and it really just boils down to one question: like whether we're talking about the actor strike or the writer's strike, when someone is a member of that union or guild or whatever the terminology is, forgive me, I'm a dunce on this, but when there's a strike going on, does that basically mean that someone who's a member of that union, they can't work at all without violating the terms of that strike? Like whether or not the work they take is freelance or for union contracts or non-union stuff, but they're expected to just not work at all. Is that right?
Well, the legal definition is that's right. They can work. However, in practice, most people don't cross union lines because then they're labeled scabs. However, They do take freelance work that's non-union, although that's technically wrong, but people do it anyway because they have to eat.
Yeah. That was my thinking is, okay, for big stars who have a big nest egg, going however long, weeks, maybe months without work is maybe not that big of a hardship. But for your average person who's, just a freelance writer or an actor, that could be devastating. And I was curious how that's coped with, because this isn't the first such strike there's been. So
people fudge it. Yeah, people fudge it.
Okay.
I'd like to say quickly that this is a very significant strike because it's about, just like past strikes by any labor organization, it comes usually after a technology change. For example, 1981, one of the biggest strikes in the Writers Guild history had to do with residuals for television back in the 50s, because television just started to become a big market. And I'm astounded that they didn't do anything, have negotiations about it before it became big, because you could see it was going to be a huge thing. Well, by the same token, this strike is about technology. It's about streaming technology and about the upcoming AI, use of AI in generating actors' images. Now, the actor images AI thing, it's gotten a lot of press, and it's a bit overblown because that technology really doesn't exist. It's much too expensive. And the legal issues of it are fairly cut and dry. However, the streaming services are much more serious. For example, there was a large, long series of articles on most of the actors from Orange is the New Black series, which was a huge hit. Well, on Netflix, one of the major stars who had a big contract on the television series ended up getting something like $4 in residuals from Netflix. And so they started asking questions, why is this right? And they couldn't get answers because it was the perfect scenario for a corporate, a company, in that the way these things are determined are so ambiguous and so multi-layered that they can hide things. They can, especially if their goal is to make more money for themselves and screw everybody else, they can hide stuff and keep people from knowing. So the strike now is for renegotiating those terms so that they're more favorable and they're more like residuals for television. That's what it's about. And the large corporations don't want to do that because their bottom line is money, not the ethics of the situation. And it's a shame, because if both sides would compromise, they could come to a conclusion pretty quickly, give a decent residual money for streaming services, but, make sure that it's not too much. But they don't even want to do that. And that's the problem. And that's why the actors are on strike, and they'll stay on. I predict this will be a long strike because they're not going to give up on the streaming services. The streaming services are only getting better and better and better. Yeah, it reached a kind of what's the word? A point where there were so many people using streaming services, they weren't advancing much anymore, but that's passed and they've moved on to another level of it. Plus, it's complicated by the fact that many of the streaming services are also production companies, which I think might down the line result in a lawsuit separating that ability. so that they can't be the company that makes it and then also determines how and streams it. It's just like the old vertical integration back in the 50s for the main studios like Universal owned all the theaters. Well, the Supreme Court made a huge decision, cut all that out. They had to separate all the businesses. So it's a big deal. And I'm with them. I'm in favor, but I do think there should be give and take on each side, but I don't think that's going to happen.
Incidentally, not to overcomplicate things by recommending a streaming show, but
great,
if any of you watch the Netflix original series Black Mirror, the new season of Black Mirror, I think it's the season 6, the very first episode deals with, in a kind of science fiction-y context, taking this whole notion of using a combination of AI and a quantum computer and digital persona of a celebrity, appropriating their image and actually buying it and then using it. It is extraordinary. It's also very entertaining and very funny, but the very first episode of season 6 is called Joan is Awful. And it's about let's call it a Netflix. This is a Netflix show about a Netflix type company with a very similar logo called Streamberry, that this girl comes home from work one day and there's a show on Netflix starring Salma Hayek, but with her hairstyle, and it is her life from that very day.
Oh my goodness.
And basically they go into how that all happened, and essentially it has to do with the data mining that happens with our phones and computers, and the listening that people are paranoid about on phones and Alexa devices and things like that they appropriated all this from a consumer and then produced this show, and AI produces the whole thing. Yeah. It's fascinating. This season was released maybe a couple weeks before the strike began.
Wow, what an interesting.
I don't think there's necessarily a cause effect there, but it's interesting timing because it really does show just how bad it could be. Yeah. If you're not familiar with Black Mirror is like Twilight Zone, except almost every time everything goes horribly wrong, like as bad as it could. Twilight Zone wasn't always that way. This one is, and it's always technology themed, so it's very interesting. But that one was just on the money. So I recommend checking that episode out.
It's not quite as in depth as that, but the new season of Futurama has just started as well, and the first episode of that deals with the fact that they've been cancelled and renewed so many times over the last 20 years. They decided to make a whole episode poking fun at the way TV shows are made, and some of the things they bring up in that are so spot on with what's happening now, even though this would have to be written at least a year ago because of all the time it takes to animate an episode like that.
Sure.
And I watched it and I thought, this is so topical.
Yeah,
like
I feel like this stuff has been bubbling up for a while.
Yeah. No, it's been bubbling up for years.
The strike is really just kind of a break point of, okay, now it's time to take a stand and do something about this. So,
there's also the side note on the legal aspects of AI generation, because courts haven't ruled on any of that yet.
Right.
There are multi lawsuits going on, and you know how slow it takes to a lawsuit like that to get. So it's going to be another year or two before some sort of legal standards are set.
Right.
I heard we might get the outcome of the first, the Copyright Office is some of the discussion that's going on there. I heard that we'd probably get it before the end of the year. But how
that would be encouraging. Well, that'd be faster than I would guess. Yeah, that's good.
That's my understanding, but we'll see how that unfolds. So it's really interesting times to see how this unfolds, I think.
Yeah. All right. Shall we move on to our first pick?
Well, hang on. Before we do that, let's just take a moment to remind people what Phil's been working on. Phil, do you want to just fill us in on the Machiniplex project?
Yeah, the Machiniplex Collection is what we're calling it. Is a upscale / remaster / revival of some hand-picked great machinima films from Machinima's first decade. Stuff. I mean, there's stuff from the very earliest days, 1998 or so, all the way up through about 2008, I think is the most recent picture there. And, it's just a hand-picked selection that we actually did back then in the mid 2000s. 2006 to 2008 is when these were selected and assembled.
Right.
And now they've been upscaled and revived, and there's a Vimeo collection. The URL will be in the notes, but it's a fairly easy one to remember if you wanted to just get it from listening here. It is bit.ly, which is bit.ly/Machiniplex. And Machiniplex is well, it's spelled like machinima, except it has plex on the okay. So that is up. We've got a trailer that's out for it, which I've pushed out on a couple different platforms now, including Instagram. I put it over on TikTok. It got about 800 views in a day.
Cool.
Which is amazing. And that's probably not filled with an audience that would have ever seen any of that stuff before.
That was probably me trying to figure out how to use TikTok, just playing it over and over.
800 times, though. Come on.
Right. Anyway, so that's where that is at. We're going to have links to it all over our site and blog, but if you want to jump straight to it, it's bit.ly/Machiniplex, and there's about 25, somewhere between 25 and 30. Just really solid pieces of work over there in the best quality that we can manage. And, based on the limitations of how they were originally made. But it's just some great work. And I guess I want to contextualize it as such. If you listen to this show much, you'll hear us critique stuff that we, stumble upon, films that we stumble upon nowadays. And if you've ever wondered what the basis is for that critique, what we're comparing machinima to, we're not comparing it to stuff we go home and watch on Netflix at night or Hollywood this or that. What we're comparing it to is what we have seen achieved in this medium with far greater number of limitations than we have to produce stuff today. And I mean, some of it, when you see the stuff in this collection, some of it really is mind-blowing. That when you contextualize it with when this was done, it's hard to believe, really. That's what we're comparing it to, is the careful, deliberate, and artistic approach that people used in machinima and use in machinima when it's at its best. That's what we're comparing stuff to. Even if we don't reference those films specifically all the time, we've seen that. And so when we see stuff now, we can't help but that's what forms the basis of, okay, what is possible in this medium. So if you're interested in that and in seeing some of these, you would never guess were made then. Like some of them, if they were released tomorrow, it would fit right in. It's just so good. Not just in terms of storycraft, but in terms of visual craft. Lainey Voom has a couple films in there. She's this mystery woman that no one knows where she is now, but she was absolutely one of the greatest artists to ever use this medium.
Yep.
And there's tons of other selection, a wide variety. There's some comedy, there's some drama, there's some stuff that's just pure art and poetry.
Yeah.
There's musical things. It's beautiful. So I encourage you to check it out.
That's awesome.
We'll make sure we have the link in the show notes for this episode.
Yes, absolutely. But there's one more thing before we move on, because I know you've been working on this for a little while, which is a showcase of some of Hugh Hancock's work. And on the 4th of August, before this episode, the first episode that we're going to be talking about in a minute, the film that we're going to be talking about in a minute goes out, there's a trailer to Bloodspell that's going to be released, or has been released, on the 4th of August. And then on the 11th of August, Phil, you've got a really interesting response that you made to Bloodspell and all the hoopla around it at the time. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that as well?
Yeah, so I wanted to have some build up leading up to when we showcase Hugh's work. I've set up a similar type of destination at Vimeo that has all of Hugh's major machinima works upscaled and remastered, if you will, and available there. But the main feature film, Bloodspell, I really wanted to have it be in proper 16:9 and 1080p, and put it on YouTube where it'll get the most possible, largest possible audience that it can, because I think it's a terrific piece of work. I full disclosure, I worked on the sound on it and some of the music on it, so I'm not without a dog in this race, but it's a good film, and it's very entertaining, and I think he considered it his greatest achievement, or one of his great achievements. So yeah, on August 4th was the trailer. The week after that is so I was doing a podcast even back then called the Overcast, and when Hugh was first promoting Bloodspell, Hugh had a lot of bravado. He was not shy about his opinions. He lacked no confidence whatsoever. He spoke big. Everything, if Hugh were a state, he would be Texas. Where just everything is big and the best, and we're the first, and this is the greatest. And once you got to know him, the interesting thing is, underneath all of that, he's a very humble man. He was a very humble man, but you'd never know that from his public persona. You'd think he was the most arrogant SOB you'd ever met in your life. Yeah,
jod purse and a big, megaphone there.
That's just how he promoted his work, and it's just the character that he assumed when he did that. Well, a lot of people in what was then the machinima community naturally, got feathers ruffled by that, and how can he say these things? It's not the greatest this, the greatest that, whatever. And what it reminded me of was an earlier incident that happened decades earlier with the Beatles, where John Lennon, in a press conference, just speaking off the cuff, said, by my reckoning, the Beatles are greater than Jesus Christ, talking about how many people are into the Beatles and how fast the Beatlemania has grown. And of course, people were repulsed by that, and there were record burning ceremonies and all this stuff, and he had to backtrack and apologize. And I thought, yeah, that's kind of where he's put himself with this in a much smaller context. So I did a fake press conference on my podcast highlighting a comment where he said Bloodspell's bigger than Jesus. And then all his cohorts, his fellow members of Strange Company, are scrambling to explain his remarks and stuff. And it was just an audio form, and it was just on a podcast that was probably heard by 100 people. And that was it. And I uncovered that when I was going through and gathering together all the stuff about Hugh, and used a little animation software to just quickly put together this kind of silly animation of that same audio. So that's going to be the week after the trailer.
Cool.
And people get to experience that. And I've even got a little bit of explanation for it that is available as well. And then, so 2 weeks after the trailer, on a Friday, will be the re-release of the movie Bloodspell in full.
The greatest movie ever made.
The greatest movie ever made in any medium ever.
Excellent. That's
Yes.
amazing. Well, that's definitely something to look forward to. However, let's move on to the films that we're going to be talking about this month. So I hope you've enjoyed that little bit of back chat from us, and let's move on. Now, super ironically, I think, and weirdly, 3 of us this month have independently picked films which have a bit of a dream theme to them.
True.
Which is amazing, I think.
I blame Bed Bananas for that.
Indeed.
Totally.
Anyway, we'll start with this week's pick. Phil, I'm going to hand over back to you actually on this one. Do you want to start us off with your pick?
Sure. Mine is a nostalgia pick of sorts. I found it while kind of hunting for stuff related to this Machiniplex collection that we're talking about, because this was made in that same era. It's made about 14 years ago by a guy named Mystfit. And it's a music video for What a Day for a Daydream by Lovin Spoonful. actually don't know how. 14 years ago, I don't know how he got away with releasing this. Nowadays, it would just be, it would be absorbed into YouTube's monetization thing, and it wouldn't be a big deal. How he got this done back then without a copyright strike, I don't know. But it's an amazing piece of work. It's made in Half-Life 2, or maybe Gary's mod in, as well. I'm honestly not sure. When I saw it back when it was released, I have no idea. Like, I guess I have a general idea of how it was made, but I don't know how they pulled it off. Like, it's really something. It's a one-shot video, as far as I can tell, of a man walking through a street, lip-synced singing the song, and all this action is going around him and behind him, and it's extraordinary.
And he's oblivious to it.
Yeah. He's walking through it, basically just not paying any attention to that, while the world is basically falling apart around him.
And getting progressively worse.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, with explosion sounds and all this, sometimes the explosions dwarfing part of the song at points, and it's just amazing. And it's such a nice contrast between this song that is kind of, nostalgic and dreamy and happy sounding, with this war-torn background. In the end, it makes it hilarious, but in a way that you don't get the feeling that it's trying to be hilarious, but it is, because of that juxtaposition of different things. So I had seen this back when it got released. I was wowed by it then. I stumbled upon it while looking through some other videos that came up in my feed, and thought, yeah, let's revisit this one, because it's not part of that collection. It's largely forgotten, I would think, and it deserves to be remembered. It's a good one. What did you guys think?
I thought I loved it, and of the other films we've chosen this month are much newer. This looks just as good as these other picks made with more modern games and released more recently. And I think that's a testament to the quality of the film and the Half-Life 2 Source engine, because it looks so good now. And I looked at the date, I thought, it can't possibly be 14 years old, but it is. And that impressed me. I really liked the way that it was done. It looked like a one-shot thing, but if you look at the end of the credit, when it fades out, some text comes up about the making of it, and it says the singer died 27 times.
See, I couldn't tell if that meant that there was that many takes and they stitched, or if it took it's like a Rube Goldberg machine, right? That you set it up, but it doesn't work, and the one time you get it, well, that's the one you release.
Yeah,
I kind of felt like it was that it was, they had to try it at least 27 different times to finally get it, because there's some elements, I think, of that chaos that are random.
Yeah,
like the way the explosion blast damage is going to work and all that. So
it would be fun to see a blooper reel of the times where it went wrong.
I agree.
That's a really good pick.
Yeah.
Ricky,
I enjoyed it very much. I thought that the technique that he used was very difficult, especially using I believe he writes in the comments to the film on YouTube that he used the Half-Life 2 hammer engine, is it? Hammer tools. Anyway, they're the tools. He used the tools to create the pathing for the main character to walk. I also like the fact that he took a fairly popular trope of the singer in music videos walking while stuff happens around them and behind them, but added enormous amounts of irony. Because here's this person out for a daydream, and you usually think daydreams are out in the fields with flowers and in the woods and stuff. No, he's in the middle of a goddamn war between guerrillas and the fascist government, and he's just out daydreaming along while all this chaos and stuff. So the irony of that makes it so funny. Such a great idea. It was very impressive. It was funny, but also, as you added, there's a lot of meaning to it as well. The irony adds meaning to it. That's one thing I like about your picks, Phil. Your picks, you usually, because humor is such a strong, important part of the way you look at the world and how you like drama and films and everything. But I love the fact that you oftentimes will add that sort of darkness or that irony underneath, that biting irony underneath. That is so intelligent and funny and smart. I always like the choices that you make that hit it like that. That's just great. This is a really, really fine choice and excellent film. Everybody should watch it.
Absolutely. I mean, I really loved it too. I mean, obviously I picked up on the, the having died 27 times making the film. And then that shot just to prove it, absolutely hilarious. But you know what I was going to do when I was sort of watching it, I was going to critique the sound design on it, actually, because you can hardly hear the song over the raid that's going on around the character at times. But of course, that's the whole point of this video. It's not a music video. It's a carry on regardless daydream in this
That's right.
post-apocalyptic kind of world where nothing matters any more than for the kind of the lead character, even though the world is doing its very best to drown out his daydream.
Yep.
And also, I think this is the irony bit that I just loved. This guy is a singer and a performer, and he's looking at that camera no matter what goes on around him, and no matter where it is. So rather than kind of being a music video, it's actually a really clever kind of observational piece. And you know what? Even though this is 14 years old, it's also a contemporary picture of what people do now.
Nice.
With this kind of stuff in the most inappropriate scenes. I don't know about you, but I've seen far too many YouTube shorts of people doing dance challenges or filming in the most absurd environment they can, like, I don't know, the middle of a 5-lane motorway or in front of a wild bear in Yellowstone, or kind of teetering on the edge of a cliff edge or something, clearly just to post it up on YouTube. So there you go. I think Machinima here has beat all these idiots to it. And how funny, and what a great pick.
Yep. I think the issue of not hearing the song as much as you might in a regular video is ameliorated a bit by the fact that the song is so classic. Everybody has heard this song, whether you know the name and the group, because it's played in everywhere, grocery stores, dental offices. You've heard it relentlessly. So the iconic status of it makes it that you already know the song. So it's not as if it's a new song.
I totally agree. I think that's exactly why it worked, is because the song has such familiarity. You can be pulled away from it and brought back, and you're okay with it. If it was a new song of some kind, that would be bad form. But yeah, no, I think that's exactly why it worked, Ricky. That's right.
Great.
Brilliant. Awesome.
It's real. I'm glad that we're looking at Half-Life 2 or any Half-Life videos, because I think the level of difficulty in creating them, good ones, not just throw off stuff, is always interesting to see those people who accept that challenge and then create something interesting. So I urge everybody to watch this. It's a great example of what you can do with this engine, with some intelligence and skill.
It's brilliant.
I'll close with this one additional observation that's interesting about this movie is it's a scripted sequence. This was not recorded live. The whole thing is what's called a map file that can be loaded into the game, and it will play back in that way. Probably took him 27 different times to tweak things so that the singer wouldn't die. But this is a sequence that runs in the game, which makes it not that unlike something you would put together in iClone or Unreal. And other than the fact that there's the game mechanic and the player is a player, it's a scripted sequence of events. That's fascinating to me, because at the time it certainly wasn't easy to do, or even possible to do something like that with straight up real-time animation tools. iClone was around, but it was quite a bit more primitive. It wasn't even in the same category of, basically it's a professional tool now. Like, there's no question.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's that much more impressive, but also it's I don't know. I just find that part interesting. It also kind of harkens back to original Machinima, which was a sequence you'd load up and watch in the game. And it's interesting that that's the approach he used on this. If they had tried to just capture this live in some kind of multiplayer setting, triggering all that, oh my goodness, would have been insurmountable.
Yeah.
But the fact that it was a scripted sequence that he could run and, okay, so it falls apart there. Let's go back and tweak this or make him walk a little bit this way instead. A lot of craft went on there. And, technically this was something that Mystfit may have done as a solo project. Those scripted sequences often are, I mean, look at Damien's show that he does now is a handcrafted thing, a scripted sequence. Nobody can accidentally die in his show, I don't think. But the concept is similar. Yeah, right.
I was thinking of
Friedrich
Kirchner's films that we talked about recently. The one where he created that artistic experience in whatever the sandbox environment.
One of the Unreal Tournament games, I think. Yeah.
Well, yeah. It's very similar sort of process to that. I would think.
Sure.
Good point, Phil.
Yeah. Anyway,
all right.
Absolutely fantastic pick. Hope you enjoyed that. That's it for this week. Join us next week. And if you want to get in touch with us, of course, you can talk to us at talk@completelymachinima.com. And that's it from all of us. Bye for now.
Thanks, everyone.